There's been a great disinformation campaign on climate science to the general public. We can say for many decades, there has been a consensus in science that we are headed for a warmer climate. Something is behind this disinformation campaign, and we should all ask ourselves, who is that, or what is that that's trying to muddy the waters of the real science for decades?
The fossil fuel industry knew back in the 1960s that the planet was warming and that it was being caused by the use of fossil fuels.
In 1965, there was a landmark report to the president about general environmental problems. It included a huge chapter about the emerging issue of carbon dioxide and the greenhouse effect. It looked through all the possible causes of the increase in carbon dioxide that was already being measured in the 1960s and couldn't find any plausible explanation besides increasing use of fossil fuels.
They covered up the research, and instead they waged a public relations campaign assaulting the public understanding of the science in that matter.
But the fossil fuel industry lied to us. They lied to Minnesotans, they lied to Americans. And they let us believe that fossil fuels, that they're safe and that they didn't have an impact. The pollution that comes out of our coal burning plants, our natural gas burning plants, is causing dramatic impacts to human health.
Climate change is the #1 public health threat of the 21st century. When you have hotter summers, that leads to polluted air stagnating, which can then lead to asthma attacks as well. And we see that there's evidence of air pollution being linked to heart attacks, high blood pressure, strokes.
Across sort of all types of pollution, low-income and minority communities are impacted the most because that's where the power plants were built. Highways were built through those communities, so they have the most vehicle pollution.
There are real people whose lives are being impacted by this.
Minnesota is one of the fastest warming of the states of the United States. Winter temperatures are really warming dramatically, up to 5 degrees from what they used to be. All the things that make Minnesota, Minnesota that we love, our lakes, our animals, those species are really stressed because of a warming climate.
Some of our iconic fishing species like trout and walleye are being damaged by the impacts of the warmer temperature combined with more runoff.
We're getting many more of those 1-inch plus rainfalls than we used to. Decades ago, that used to be a more rare event. We'd call them 100 or 500-year floods. Those are happening on the time scale of every summer now for parts of the state. If we do nothing, Minnesota's going to continue on this trajectory. We will hit a tipping point.
We could be in a very different place today if the fossil fuel industry had decided to do something about climate change when they were ahead of the curve. But instead they buried that evidence.
They funded massive campaigns to sow doubt.
Exxon ran national paid opinion ads that very deliberately targeted the public in general to cast doubt about the science of climate change. We have documents written by scientists within Exxon, for example, going back into the 80s, where they lay out chapter and verse what will happen if we don't stop greenhouse gas emissions. And it's pretty bad news. Inside the company, they declare this will cause very severe harm. We know they knew better. They continued to fund third-party voices that would say things that they couldn't be caught saying.
They spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to influence who is elected, even our state legislators.
The executives in the lobbying division of Koch Industries would go to bed and wake up thinking about how to stop any government action to hold fossil fuel companies accountable for climate change pollution. And that shows the influence of money in a very clear way, where a company spends money on lobbying to gain access.
They sold these products that we all used, yes, but they sold them and they knew better. They knew that the products were causing harm. In all those cases, the public bears the cost through asthma attacks and lost work time and impacts on agriculture from air pollution, for example. It's one of the biggest long-term crimes, and the companies have skated free.
Our consumer protection laws are very strong. We saw violations of those laws when it came to the tobacco companies in terms of what they had said about the impacts of smoking, and we're seeing it now with regard to the fossil fuel companies arguing for decades their products did not contribute to the impacts of climate change, even though their own scientists and their own data told them that that was false. So the Minnesota Attorney General is seeking restitution and for the fossil fuel companies to basically help fix the problem.
You've been lied to, and that's deeply troubling. No one likes to be lied to.